to the Board of Education regular meeting. It is Wednesday, November 5th. Are we in compliance with open meeting laws?
Yes, we are.
Roll call, please.
Dewitt. Here. Ward.
Here.
Herzog.
Here.
Hess.
Here.
Smiley.
Here.
Wright.
Here.
Wyman.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. And tonight we have Sophie Fletcher from West High School who will be leading us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Sophie, I'd like to thank you very much for coming. And we have a certificate of appreciation for you for taking time out of your busy night. So thank you again. Thanks for representing West High School. And I also have one for
Yes.
who wasn't able to.
Very well deserving of it, if it is.
Okay, thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
Dr. Davis, the land acknowledgement?
Well, let's hear from Principal Montour.
Oh, I'm
first.
sorry. Gosh, I just talked to her. Yes, thank you very much.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
We just wanted to highlight a few things that are going really well at West. We're off to a really strong start this year. Some data, this is from spring, but we're, carrying it into the year. We had 78% of West's AP students scored a 3 or higher, so it came out to 147 students who got college credit from their AP courses last year. And we're starting to see, it's not a lot of movement, but some of our gaps are starting to close on our pre-ACT and ACT, specifically with our special ed students. So our pre-ACT scores are showing that in English, our students with IEPs gained an average of 1.15 points on their overall score. Their cumulative went up 0.5. Their English score increased by 0.7. And math and science stayed relatively the same, but we're starting to see some of those gaps close a little bit, which is exciting because of the work we've been doing. We recently just took the Gallup survey and looked at our staff engagement numbers. And from last year, October 24 to this year, October 25, we went up over almost 20%. So last year at this time, 38% of the staff were considered highly engaged, and this year we're at 57% of the staff. So really, it's been really exciting and good work. Staff are really like digging into the work, especially because they're seeing some of those gaps starting to close a little. Our My Sabre score is also, we just got those results this week. It's the highest it's ever been since we started taking it. So that also increased in every sub-score across the school. And that really talks about like student belonging, how they feel about coming to school every day. So we're at a 3.09 in that. This goal for schools is a 2.92. So we're above that again. And we really started the year working on a push, like a You Belong push. So we really tried to work really hard on making sure that our atmosphere at West, every single kid sees himself there, sees himself as a scholar, sees himself as capable of achieving. We've been running some pushes. We challenge students to take it upon themselves to make sure that everybody else should feel like they belong. We gave the staff a list of look-fors. What does it look for in a classroom to create that sense of belonging? And then we challenged them to find students, treating each other in that way, welcoming them into class discussions, conversations, and then acknowledging them that way. So we were doing some like PBIS work with that. We've been giving a really concerted effort focusing on our Heritage Months. We have some staff and students running that. So this, like right now, it's Indigenous Peoples Month. So on Wednesdays when you're in the school, you'll hear the music in the hallways. There's a featured drink at the cafe. We have a presentation that's given in our live homerooms that's put together by students and staff members that identify with that heritage each month. And then the thing I'm most excited about, it's just kind of getting off the ground, is our student body. We had some student leaders come to us asking if we can start like an anti-hate speech campaign that will be entirely student-directed and student-run. So we have a representative from every club and activity in our building has come together across grade levels. They're going to be designing this campaign, and the goal is they're going to go into some homerooms and they're going to teach these lessons to their peers. They've asked me very clearly to kind of stay out of the way. Like, they want to do this, they want to take ownership in this, so I'm helping them just with some logistical stuff, helping them get set up and get into the classrooms, but they really feel like this is their school, and they want to make sure everybody who's there feels welcome and appreciated, and so they are going to lead this effort, and honestly, it's been really cool. I mean, every single club, from paranormal club, robotics, our youth justice, there's a rep from every single club in there working on this, writing the plans, and then they'll roll it out to the student body in December. So that's the highlight right now.
Great.
That's
Nice.
great.
That's
Yeah,
great.
it's really neat. Maddie's one of our leaders, just so you know.
Very
So-
good. Very good.
Awesome.
Great.
Thank you.
Any questions for Principal
Yeah.
Latour?
Thank you so much for coming. Yeah, appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Thanks.
And Dr. Davis, the land acknowledgement.
Yes, as we gather today, we'd like to acknowledge that in Oshkosh, we are on the ancestral homelands of the Ho-Chunk Nation and the Menominee Indian Tribe of Wisconsin, who lived along the western shores of Lake Winnebago, Wisconsin's largest freshwater lake entirely within its borders. We acknowledge these indigenous sovereign communities who have stewarded this land throughout generations and pay respect to their elders, past and present. We welcome the duty and opportunity to share stewardship of these lands.
Thank you very much. Approval of agenda. Is there anyone that would like to see anything of the agenda moved around? Okay, then we will carry on. President's report. This evening, my mission moment is kind of exciting. It is about Caden Harrison, and Caden, I normally try to keep these a little succinct, but Caden wrote this for me, so I want to read it because he took time and effort to be able to join us virtually this evening. Hello, my name is Caden Harrison. I'm a sophomore at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, the School of Pharmacy, studying pharmacology and toxicology, PharmTox, with a second major in molecular and cell biology, MCB. I graduated from Oshkosh North High School, where I was fortunate to take numerous dual credit classes. These included CAP Biology, CAP Chemistry, CAP Spanish, CAP Speech, CAP English. These courses were not only an opportunity to explore my academic interests, but also enabled me to graduate high school with 36 college credits. 36 college credits. At Madison, that's essentially an entire year completed, which helped me as a sophomore earn admission into a highly selective PharmTox program that only admits 24 students a year, typically only juniors and seniors. Because of these credits, I can complete the PharmTox program in just 2 years, while also pursuing an additional major in MCB. According to my advisors, this dual achievement was previously unheard of. The CAP courses have allowed me to accelerate my education and save thousands of dollars. For me, time saved means getting to graduate school faster. What usually takes 4 to 5 years will take me 3. I don't think enough people talk about how impactful CAP courses can be for students' futures, especially in the terms of financial savings. Most importantly, the teachers in each of these classes pushed me to be the best I could be and showed me where I could truly thrive. I credit much of my passion for my science and medicine to Paula Dillon and Jacob Landgraf, and although she was not a CAP teacher, Michelle Kleisen as well. Lisa Hinderman and Sarah Klein transformed challenging classes into some of the most enjoyable and engaging experiences I had in high school. Finally, Ariane Bougie brought out a passionate writer in me that I didn't even know existed. Her impactful guidance still shapes how I write today. These teachers play a crucial role in making difficult coursework both manageable and deeply worthwhile, in addition to the advantages of CAP classes, the CAP classes offer later. In conclusion, although the benefits are not always obvious at first, CAP courses were a game changer for me. They saved me money, time, boosted my interest, and prompted me to graduate college in 3 years with 2 bachelor's degrees, an accomplishment that normally takes 4 years for 1 degree. Some students at UW-Madison had never heard of CAP courses, so coming from Oshkosh, I feel very fortunate and privileged to have had the opportunity to take these classes. I believe every student should have and feel the same. So thank you, Caden. Very, very well written. Caden is a coach for the Oshkosh Yacht Club Sailing School, and through some of our conversations, I'm very involved in that, through some of our conversations, this came up. So when we were looking at mission moments and had other conversations involving CAP courses and the advantages of CAP courses, I asked him to write this because I don't know that we talk about CAP courses enough and the advantages that there are, and that Oshkosh, I think we have one of the highest CAP number of students in the state. So congratulations to us for providing CAP classes and the university for being some of our coordinating mentors and the teachers that are teaching them. The teachers named here obviously made a big impact in Caden's life, and we thank them. And I hope more students take advantage of our CAP class journey. That's my president's report for tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And now we have the superintendent's report.
All right, so we'll check in with North first. So go ahead.
Good evening, everybody. We're just going to start with the Oshkosh North football team. We are currently on to, I think, the playoffs. I don't think that we have
Level 3 of the playoffs.
Yeah.
level 3
Yep.
of the playoffs,
Yep.
yes. We haven't lost one game yet, I don't think.
Just one.
Or we've lost one game?
Yep,
Yeah.
one game at the end of the year.
Only to Notre Dame.
Yep.
Yeah, but we actually have River Falls coming up. We
Yep.
are so excited. You see, like, the people in the jerseys in the hallways, and everyone gets so excited. It's like, it's great seeing people proving that you can also be in academics and excel at football. So it's really nice to see everyone being really excited and everyone being together with that. Another thing we had this weekend, actually, was Oshkosh Sings. And I was involved in that as well, and I helped put it together as well. It was so great, along with parents and both students, ranging from 5th grade all the way to my grade, which is seniors. We had over like 2,000 people in there, just all to make music together. We had the audience sing with us too. We split up in different things. It was such a great time, and we really felt a community between West and North, between the middle schools of everywhere around. Like Oshkosh, we usually feel like there's this like Northwest type of like fight, but it was great for everyone to come together and just make beautiful songs. And then someone who is in actually my grade, Tiana Hayes, she goes to state for cross country, which was really great. Very proud. And then today actually was Hadestown callbacks. So Hadestown is going to be our Oshkosh North musical for this year. It's a Greek tragedy between Orpheus and Eurydice. If anyone is well versed in that, it's very interesting. It's going to be probably in mid-February. So we had auditions earlier this week, and just tonight actually we had some callbacks, and the cast list should be out by the end of the week. So everyone's very excited. If you go in the music department, everyone's practicing like the pit auditions, everyone practicing like their stage crew like applications. It's just a great way for everyone to be involved in a musical in different aspects. And that's about all I have.
I'll say my daughter, who is not in music at all, she has been talking about how she's like hearing all these kids talking about these different like Greek characters, names, and gods, and she's like, they all are determined on who they're going to be. So it's definitely the talk of the school in various classes.
Yeah. Thanks,
It's
Kim.
great.
All right,
All right,
so
Maddie.
what's going on with the Wildcats? In November, we'll start off with our sports. Our boys soccer team finished their season with 6 wins, 9 losses, and a tie. That is their team on their very last game. It unfortunately was a loss, but the spirit was really there, and all of them coming together was really great to see. Next, for varsity football, we unfortunately ended our season with 1 win and 8 losses. A very great win, though. Next up, girls swim and dive just recently had their conference meet with 3 overall wins and 3 losses. That is our swim team you can see there, and our dive team. And then next up, girls volleyball did super great, 7 wins and 2 losses. They made it all the way to regionals, and that is them. Everyone was very excited about it. Lots of spirit throughout all of this team as well. And then for cross country, we had the entire girls varsity team qualify for state, which was super exciting. And for boys individuals, we had Carter Crow and Dominic Moore qualify. Very exciting that all of them were able to make it and go together. They put in a lot of hard work to get there. So those are all of our runners, and then both our girls and boys runners. Next up, our 1X play made it to sectionals. They put on Pearl. It's a very interesting storyline. Then we have the Ofrenda display. This was put on and helped by one of our teachers, Mr. Webster. This was kind of to help honor Dia de los Muertos. Up in the top corner left, you can see it's kind of just some information about what the tradition is, and then on the top right is the parts of the ofrenda and what different things mean to the culture and how important all of them are and how important it is to the heritage. So that was kind of cool to see up, and it was really a good teaching moment for what was going on. Next up, our student council received a letter of recognition from the Ribbon of Hope. This was our choice donation where when Oshkosh North and West put on the Powder Puff game and we made the donations, this is the organization we chose to provide it to. It's a northern Wisconsin community, so it was really great to see all of that put to use. Next up, we had some fall concerts for both orchestra, string and symphony, and also band. They had some great fall costumes and everything. So there's orchestra, as you can see, and then our band. And then we also had our senior shirts decisions. There were many forms sent out about this and lots of choices to choose from, and the final was a SpongeBob shirt. And then last but not least, we have the Fall Conference Leadership Tour that's happening on November 19th. This is all of our student council members are offered to sign up and go to this, where we go to Green Bay for the day and get to do a bunch of leadership, conferences type stuff and activities and lots of different games and just getting to connect with other people from around the state. So super exciting. That was, yeah.
Thank you very much.
Well done.
All right, so now on to the superintendent's good news report for tonight. We'll start at Franklin Elementary School. Last month, third graders at Franklin were visited by a professor of biology from Ripon College for a special presentation on eastern bluebirds. Students learned fascinating facts and how the process of banding helps scientists track bluebird movements and study of their behaviors. Our young Franklin Falcons impressed everyone with their thoughtful questions they had prepared, showing that they're a true biologist in the making. It's a fun activity over at Franklin. Our Oshkosh North Engineering 2 students wrapped up their civil engineering unit by getting an exclusive tour of our city's US 45 Main Street Bridge. In partnership with the Wisconsin DOT and Lundy Construction, students got an up-close view of the complex electrical and mechanical systems that operate the drawbridge. This is a unique site visit to help ground our students in understanding the engineering principles and potential pathways here right in Oshkosh. Our fourth annual Oshkosh Sings, which was brought up before, was a citywide concert that brought over 700 students together in grades 5 through 12 for a spectacular performance last Saturday. This year's concert also featured special guests, the UWO Chamber Choir. It included a unique segment where choir teachers and students taught a traditional canon to the entire audience. The concert ended with nearly 2,000 people singing together, perfectly embodying the belief of music is for everyone. So thanks for all of the hard work that went into that opportunity. Dr. Singh, Chancellor at UW Oshkosh, recently visited Reed Elementary School to learn more about the school. This visit highlighted the shared commitment to supporting students and strengthening both campuses. While touring the building, Dr. Singh engaged directly with students who enthusiastically asked him about his role, showcasing how Reed Rockets are already launching towards their future career goals. So thank you for Dr. Singh for spending some time over at Reed. First graders at Roosevelt Elementary celebrated the completion of their CKLA Knowledge Unit on the human body, and with a special and memorable review. Thinking outside of the box, our teachers arranged for 3 Oshkosh West students to serve as special guest presenters. The high schoolers reviewed key human body concepts taught throughout the unit, culminating in an engaging game to test first graders' knowledge before their final assessment. At halftime of the Oshkosh North homecoming football game, our North Marching Band performed their most entertaining show of the year. Cartoon Explosion featured songs from beloved cartoons, including the Looney Tunes, Pink Panther, Doug, and Bluey. Not only did the band sound great, but they showed off their impressive field formations and entertained the entire crowd. So well done there. Oshkosh West High School continued a decade-long tradition by hosting the student-run haunted house that brings thrills to hundreds of peers. Students collaborated to plan, build, and operate the experience. The elaborate maze took up the entire gym, and whether giving tours or handing out candy, students successfully delivered memorable, fun experiences to the whole school community. And finally, just part of my schedule over the last couple of weeks, I've been able to be out and about, so I appreciate everybody's support and hard work as we're wrapping up quarter number 1 here for the school district. So, and that concludes the superintendent's report for tonight.
Thank you very much. Next, we'll have district administrator supplemental reports. We will start with referendum update, Mr. Yerke.
Good evening, board and our guests in attendance. A brief referendum update tonight. Currently, our referendum projects are on schedule. That's always good news in the world of construction and bidding processes. The major points in the report with key communications, really I think that the biggest agenda item is during the November 14th Common Council meeting, our final plan for the proposed traffic light, right turn lane, and flashing beacons was voted down by the Common Council. So I just want to walk through kind of that process from start to finish. So the district, along with the City Transportation Committee, did a comprehensive traffic study before the referendum piece was put into play. We gathered feedback from community around that area, from staff at Traeger, and wanted to be proactive in the approach of putting those traffic lights, right turn lane, and flashing beacons there. They weren't required based on the traffic counts at that time. It is a proactive measure. We looked at and talked to the city and the community about expansion that's likely to happen in that area over time, but the traffic counts didn't require a traffic light. We thought at that time it would be a proactive thing to put those lights in as long as we were going through that process. Again, Common Council voted that down. So we will still on our end make the adjustments to our driveway, so to speak. We'll expand that to 4 lanes so we have easier left turn, right turn. And we'll have the ability, if and when the time comes where traffic lights have to go in based on counts, at that time, it will not be our responsibility to put those lights in. It would be the city's responsibility. If a traffic study is done based on the request of somebody in that area to do that, it would then be the city's obligation to put those traffic lights in at Traeger. A couple other pieces to that. When we just look at, again, the driveway, one thing I wanted to mention is there's a local business right across, and we wanted to line up that driveway with that local business, so when the time comes, if traffic lights go in, there's no adjustments that need to be made on that business side. Everything's in place to add the lights at that time. Other referendum updates. So listening sessions will take place at Franklin and Oakwood in the coming weeks. We send letters to families within those areas to attend listening sessions. Bray and Associates, along with Oshkosh Planning Services from the city, and members of our team will be present. We'll go through the design plans, the logistics of the construction projects, where community members, neighbors can provide feedback and input similar to what we did at Traeger. Again, City Planning Services will be there. Members of our facilities and referendum teams will be there, along with Bray, to go through those plans. The dates are Franklin will be November 20th, and those letters have gone out, and Oakwood will be December 2nd, both at 6 o'clock in those commons. This will be posted on social media. Schools will be putting it in their newsletters, so there'll be plenty of opportunities for people to attend these if interested. We have started the kickoff design process for the new middle school, and the first thing we really did was talk to our Val Phillips team and got their thoughts on how their building operates, the functionality, what they like, what they don't like. We've used them as a great resource. Our planning team went and visited Maplewood Middle School in Menasha. It's a brand new building. They do some unique things there. Some of the big ticket items at the start of a planning phase that you discuss, number one is the location of the building. Where's it going to face? How is busing going to look? What are the people on the backside of the building going to see? So you look at your space and you try to configure that building based on things you've learned in the past from constructing buildings, best practice. Work with the city on location of that building, number one. Other big ticket items we're starting to talk about is just distributive dining. It's kind of a new thing in education where instead of having one big commons, you have multiple smaller lunch areas scattered throughout your building. It helps space things out. You don't maybe have 300 kids eating lunch at the same time, keeping grade levels together. So we're looking at some of the unique dining options. And then again, parent drop-off, busing. There'll be a large number of buses that will come through that building, so making sure we have correct traffic flow. So the design team is in the beginning stages of all of those pieces. And the last item to note is tomorrow we kick off the North Auditorium design process. So we will be meeting with the North team. We have members of all of their fine arts teams participating in this, members of Bray. And then on Friday, we take a visit to Sun Prairie to look at their brand new auditorium and space to help us plan our process and what it's going to look like. So I know it's a brief referendum report. Any questions on those bullets? Yep.
Having been a parent who drove my kids to Traeger for 12 years, I'm a little surprised to hear the result of that. Did that went through Plan Commission?
Went through City Transportation Committee.
Their Transportation, and they said yes to it?
Yes.
Did council give any sort of rationale as to why?
There was some discussion. I think the premise of there was that they studied the traffic flow, they looked at it, they observed it, and didn't feel like lights were necessary at this time based on the traffic count.
So city staff
Correct.
suggested they didn't necessarily need it? Okay.
No, that would have been
The
council
council made the
members.
determination.
Council members, yes.
Okay.
Did you mention, or maybe I just missed it, did you speak to the air conditioning going into the 3 buildings?
I did not, but
Okay.
that is going forward as planned.
Okay.
So our facility director, Jim Fox, has been working his tail off to get RFPs out there and go through bids and get ahead of ordering, because we know it's going to be a long-term process to get a lot of those units in. But we are on track and on schedule for those, and right on budget.
And
Excuse me, sorry.
for that, we were making sure, one of the things was just supply chain for, a lot of that. So at this point, it looks like everything, we would be able to get everything completed for air conditioning in each one of those buildings next summer. And we'd be able to get everything that we need. So we're in good shape
Thank
at
you.
this point.
Thank you. Take care.
Anything else?
Just one comment related to Traeger. I think there was definitely a lot of disappointment in the school community related to this, I think, to Tim. I just encourage parents and staff to continue to be vocal to City Council and saying why they think this is need for safety measures. And whatever we can do, parents have expressed to me the need for possibly just more blinking lights or even better, clearer sidewalks for the kids crossing the street and things like that. I think it's going to be a little bit of a long haul, but hopefully we can continue to work with City Council to.
We do have, as part of the, working with the city, we do have, I believe, an updated flashing light that's going in for the YMCA crossing.
Okay,
I
good.
believe that's part of the
Good little
process.
compromise, yeah.
That would be a little bit to the west.
Yeah.
But no flashing lights directly
At the-
At
the
at
driveway.
At the driveway, right,
Yeah.
but it would be up
Yeah.
at
At
the
the
crossing,
crosswalk.
yeah, to go over to the YMCA.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Budget variance report, Mr. Nehans.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Included in your materials were the budget variance report through the, up to the last week of October due to the timing of this meeting. Board materials were going out prior to the end of the month, so it says end of month, but actually it's like the last week of October. So our operating funds, again, that's the Fund 10 and Fund 27, our general fund and special education fund. The operating funds are running right now as a surplus, slight surplus, and projecting out that we could end the year better than budget. Again, it's early in the year, and we've still got some timing at this point with where the expenses to trend have been going on. So Let's be cautious on how we're looking at that, but it's a better report at this time of year than we've had in the last several years. So we're starting off the year on a better foot. The Fund 50, again, revenues lag for a food service fund, but our expenses are running about 6% lower than last year. Again, some of that is going to be the transition from internal director management staff to Chartwell's staff, and just the timing of how that has played out, and the lack of an internal everyday person that would come off of our expense sheet on that. The Fund 80, the Recreation Department, is running similar to prior years. Expenses are a little bit high right now, but again, a lot of that was the completion of the playgrounds. Expenses were on this fiscal year, just to the timing of that. Nothing too alarming out of any of those funds at this time. Any questions?
Dr. Herzog?
I did have one. Could you just give us a couple of examples of what might be included in purchase services? I know that's a line item in the budget and it fluctuates, and I'm just curious what might be a couple of examples of what is included in there.
Sure. So purchase services are anything that we would get from an outside business or an outside entity. So all of our utilities are all part of that purchase services areas. The voucher program comes and expenses out as a purchase service system. Anything with an open enrollment, all of those things do that. Typically, for a taxpayer to think of it, when you go to put a roof on your house, that contract you're paying, that invoice to a Hickey Roofing, for us, that goes into purchase service.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Any other questions? Thank you, Mr. Neons.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I don't believe there are any other committee reports this evening? Correct? Okay. Next, we move into agenda-related and non-agenda-related public forum. We'll see if we have any speakers this evening. Thank you. We have one speaker this evening for non-agenda related public forum, Mr. Watts. You will have 3 minutes to clearly state your name, city residing, the topic you wish to address. And as I said, your limit of comments is 3 minutes. And remember, the use of specific names of district personnel may lead to legal liability.
Give me one moment. No mint today. All right, this better? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I'll make sure I got this. Hold on a second. All right, let's see if I can get this all out in 3 minutes. I always like to talk, so. Ready?
Ready.
My name is Jeffrey Watts, and I'm from Oshkosh, Wisconsin. Today I brought my son Connor Watts with me. He's a student at Jefferson Elementary. And I'm here tonight because I believe in public education, but I also believe in accountability. And accountability from the board, from our teachers, and from our district leadership. I was a special education student my entire childhood, and I still receive educational services today as a college student. And you might not see it from the outside, but those supports helped me become the man I am today. A single father, a small business partner, and a Dean's List student working towards a degree in software development. That's what the right kind of support can do for a child who just needs to be believed in. But when I hear talk about budget cuts, it brings to mind special education, inclusion, or mental health programs. I get concerned because I've lived the difference of those services, what those services make. And while we must protect special education, we also have to be honest. Not every student struggling is disabled. Some of these kids are trauma survivors, dealing with loss, inability, or things no child should have to carry. They don't always need a label. Sometimes they just need patience, understanding, and a different approach. When we label trauma as a disability, we're treating the symptom, not the cause, and that means we're failing those kids twice. Accountability must also extend to the classroom. Teachers hold immense influence, and most use it with compassion and integrity. But when there's inappropriate behavior, abuse of authority, or unprofessional conduct, it must be addressed, not buried. Parents deserve to know that our district holds every adult to the same standards that we expect from our students. We're also battling issues of racism and bullying, and kids are watching how adults handle conflict when elected leaders create fake accounts to attack or divide. That sends dangerous messages that it's okay to hide behind a screen instead of standing behind your words. And let's be clear, free speech is a right, but even free speech has its repercussions. Words matter, and when those words come from people in leadership, they carry weight that can either heal or harm. We need leaders who stand in the light, who model honesty, compassion, and courage, even when it's uncomfortable. That's why I'm calling for an Equity and Accountability Advisory Board made up of parents, educators, and students to ensure every voice is heard before decisions are made. Every child, no matter their color, ability, income, or past, deserve to be treated as worthy of investment, not a line item on a spreadsheet. If we truly believe in every child every day, then we must mean every single child. Thank you. It's your seat I want.
Thank you very much. Okay, and tonight for workshops, we have the state data on math achievement. Mrs. Cole. And Dr. Coleman. Oh my gosh, and a whole bunch of people. And others, et al.
All right, good evening to the board, to those who are joining us, and to those who are watching. We are here tonight to present an update on our forward test data in the areas of math, and then following this, we'll talk about reading and literacy, and then we'll also provide an update on our ACT and pre-ACT results. This information is from last school year, and we want to preface this by being clear that, again, we're on a journey here as a school system and as a district to shift our system. And so we've come to this board quite a bit to talk about what those shifts in our system will consist of or has consisted of, particularly with the new instructional materials that we're using in literacy and in math, particularly in kindergarten through 8th grade. So what we'll talk about tonight, again, is a lagging indicator. We've been clear that the results that we will describe do not represent where we intend to be or what we are proud of, but it does make the case for why this systemic shift and the foundation that we're building is necessary, so that more of our students can experience the very best of our school district, so that more of our teachers have the opportunity to feel fulfillment in their work, and the same is true for our leaders and support services staff. And so what you'll hear in this report is the truth, and many things can be true at once. Certainly it is true that we have hardworking educators and leaders and parents and students that we believe are doing their very best. And another truth is, as a system, the results that we are currently producing don't reflect the best that I believe we can be. And so we are on a journey to realize our full potential. And that journey is we are in our early phases, and we are committed to continuing through the difficult work. So you'll hear that truth. So it's important for me to say that because I don't want teachers, leaders, parents, and families watching to suggest that the hard work that has gone into the early phases of this journey is for naught. But we are clear that this indicator, and as we've talked about in previous meetings, there are leading indicators, and those are more immediate results of the health of our system, show signs of promise, and it's going to take time before we see those results manifest in our lagging indicators, like the assessments that we're going to look at tonight. After this presentation, certainly we will hear remarks from the board. We anticipate that those remarks will celebrate the work of our educators and also critique the pace at which change and growth is happening. We stand in agreement that change as quickly as possible is what we all want, and change as quickly as possible takes strategy. It takes consistency. And so in addition to the results that we will share, we will also share insights about the strategies that we're committed to. And just because we haven't seen change quite yet does not mean that we've chosen the wrong strategies. It doesn't mean we have the wrong teachers. It doesn't mean we don't have bright and capable students. It means we're building a foundation that is necessary to shift our system. And so with that, we want to remind our board, our community members, our parents of our vision, that is to be the leader in education through innovation while focusing on the whole child, our core values, our mission, and our guiding principle of students first. Director Cole, I'll turn it over to you.
So this graphic just shows the demographics of our school district over the past 4 years, and those have been changing over time. So I'm specifically tonight talking, or Jackie and I tonight talking about our forward exam, math achievement, which was taken last spring, and that is taken by students in grades 3 through 8. Overall, our performance on the forward exam in spring did decline from the year previous, and certainly, as Dr. Coleman said, does not reflect our district's potential. As far as our comparison to nearby districts in the state, our rank has not changed in math. And then when we look at the overall, as you can see, there was a dip from the prior year. As a reminder, between 2022-23 and then 23-24, the cut scores for the forward exam were changed. So while we're showing the data from those first 3 years in the 5-year trend, please keep in mind that the cut scores did change, so it's really difficult or impossible to compare those scores to the last 2 years.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but can you clarify what the percentages mean for people watching?
That is, thank you. That shows the percentage of kids who demonstrated proficiency in math on the forward exam.
Thank you.
This graph basically shows the performance of students, the proficiency level of students in our different demographic groups, including economics, English proficiency, and disability status. And this clearly shows that we still have pervasive achievement gaps in math that need to be addressed. This graphic shows those achievement gaps for these groups of students. So Asian, Black, Hispanic, 2 or more races, and white. And again, demonstrates that we still do have significant achievement gaps in math. This graph shows the performance from the past 5 years by grade level. We did see at grade 5 that our 5th grade students demonstrated increases in the percentage of students performing at or above proficiency. So that was the one grade level where we saw an increase in proficiency.
I can talk about this.
Okay.
If that's okay. So we've, in the past, and as I've shared in my opening, our systemic approach to improving overall student results. So in the past, we've talked about what the 4 components are of our proven process. And what I would offer, or just ask you to think about these as headers. So consistent use of high quality instructional materials would be the header of this particular component of the proven process. So that refers to the instructional materials we're using for math. We recently asked the board to support the adoption of Bridges 3 in elementary school, and illustrative math in middle school, and then for literacy or English language arts, core knowledge, language arts or CKLA in elementary school, and Study Sync in our middle schools. And so what we believe is the adoption of those instructional materials is not only an important part of our proven process, but being able to support teachers to use those instructional materials to meet the range of needs that exist within the classroom. And so we do that through, for example, relevant professional learning and coaching, And that coaching, how it looks in year one. So again, see this as a header, and then under these would be what the progression looks like for what's inside of each of these four components of the proving process. We have made a commitment to share with our education committee more detail so that there's not guesswork that has to go into when we say strategic use of student achievement and behavior data, what that means, how we're using it, but did want to provide a picture and an image of what we're doing to build a stronger foundation so that all of our students have the opportunity to experience a pathway toward and beyond proficiency in both math and reading. So we'll talk about this again when we get to our English and language arts, but wanted to explain the process that we're using to understand how students are currently performing and then controlling what's in our control to support improved performance. We are 1 year we are 3 months into the use of these four components. So it's important to realize again where we are on this journey with the full implementation of our literacy and math curriculum, as well as using this as a process. So just want to remind the board and listeners where we are in this journey. And again, we are in those early phases.
I do have a question. Could you please tell us when the board adopted Bridges 3 based on recommendation from staff?
Bridges 3
Bridges
would
3.
have been in February.
Spring of 2024.
So it was in February, March.
Okay. And what about the illustrative math for middle school?
Same time.
Okay. The reason I ask that is that I can't speak for other institutions, but it's common in education when you adopt new materials that there's what they call an implementation dip, whereas the staff is adjusting to the changes required in instructional strategies and the kind of content that is expected, that you see a dip maybe that first year or maybe two, and then after that, once the staff is more comfortable and they've received more professional development, then scores go up. Thank you.
Can I ask one question? Fifth grade seems to be our highlight. What do you think is happening in fifth grade that they were very proficient or more proficient?
I think this is where the difference between like growth and proficiency comes into play. So one of the things that we really strive for with our students in one of our leading indicators is the iReady assessment, which they take 3 times a year. And so we're always talking with kids about making their stretch growth goals, they call them, where we want to see kids making at least 1 year's growth in 1 year's time, but the stretch growth goal is more than 1 year's growth in 1 year's time. So over time, if kids are meeting their stretch growth goals, that means they're starting to catch up to grade level if they were behind grade level previously. So I don't know if that's the explanation for, the success that we saw with our fifth grade, but when we know when a student is behind grade level, it takes several years for them to catch up.
Thank you.
So this slide, sorry.
No, go ahead.
So this slide, so we call this our through line, and it, as Director Cole talked about, iReady, for example, being a leading indicator. We have 3 additional leading indicators that allow us as a district, that allow our teachers, and that allow our leadership team members to understand the effectiveness of our processes and then also make adjustments as needed along the way. So on a weekly basis, those learning walks that we call rigor and engagement walks is an opportunity for us to visit classrooms, spend time with teachers, spend time observing, teaching and learning, and we use a rubric to get a sense of to what degree students are engaged in their learning in ways that we would consider to be rigorous and meaningfully engaging. We also use formative assessments, and so those are ongoing tests. We don't use like pop quizzes, maybe what we might remember, back in school, but formative assessments are kind of like exit tickets. It gives students an opportunity to demonstrate what they understood at the end of a lesson or even midway through a lesson, and that then gives the teacher information about what reteaching might need to happen or how to support individual students who maybe didn't grasp those concepts. We also use unit assessments, and those are common across the district as a way to understand at the end of each unit how much skill development has occurred and students' ability to apply those skills using those assessments. 3 times a year, we use a more formal measure to monitor growth, and so that would be through our iReady, and we use this as a progress monitoring tool. And then again, today we're here to talk about the forward exam and also the ACT, and these are what we would consider lagging indicators. When we think about the health of our system and the progress or the promise of the strategies that we're using, all of these measures matter, and where we will see the most impact while we're in the early phases of our journey will be through these leading indicators, indicators that give us more immediate results. So when we go into classrooms, are students passively engaged, or are they asking questions? Are they having discussion? Are they engaged in grade level tasks? When we use our iReady assessment, again, there will be differences, and there are differences between proficiency indicators on the iReady compared to proficiency indicators on the forward exam, and that could be for different reasons. One could be the amount of time students are taking the iReady in 1 year compared to the forward assessment, which they are taking here in the spring. And so there will certainly be progress and promise that we can measure and see in these leading indicators and make adjustments as necessary. And what we don't see in the immediate term is the growth of the impact of that to show up on the forward exam. And so as Dr. Herzog explained and described, we anticipate the impacts of what is commonly referred to as an implementation dip. And this implementation dip means that there's a period of time that it takes for teachers to gain mastery of instructional materials that are new, and not just of the materials, but how to use those materials to meet individual student needs. And I'm taking my time to explain this because it's important to note that we are not talking about doing miracle work here. We're talking about taking a systemic approach and building a system that allows more of our students to have a pathway to and beyond proficiency.
So I just wanted to highlight, based on this slide, one of the things that Dr. Coleman and I have been thoughtful of in this process is how do we appropriately get data to the board and to the community in a timely fashion. And so you can see there's weekly, monthly measures. As we would look at what would be appropriate from a board and a community aspect of it, we would look at the iReady diagnostic, which would be 3 times a year, which would provide an opportunity for the board to see what the baseline was from our initial test at the beginning of the year, what our mid-year points are, and then our end-of-the-year points, where we can, and we've talked about being able to develop a dashboard for the board and for the community to be able to see updates 3 times a year. What I would anticipate doing is being able to bring that to the school board, potentially as part of our strategic plan evolution here coming up in December, January, February, because I think important in that space we can talk about proficiency, but we can also talk about growth. So I think that's important, and it ups the frequency of the amount of time or amount of data that the board and the community would get. Attached to that, then we could also talk about what are our focus strategies and how are they going throughout the year. So beginning of the year, we can talk about what the training has been, what the implementation has started in, and just be able to give progress points along with that data as we would go. So that's the thought process. I just wanted to lift that up from a board standpoint and to the community for anybody listening. From an accountability aspect of it, that would be how that would fit.
I was going to ask a question on your last 2 slides. I'm asking this now because it's in the next 2 presentations as well. And I appreciate that you're stating that this is the beginning of our journey. For many of us, though, it feels like we're in the middle or at the end of a very long, terrible slog that hasn't necessarily felt like this is I shouldn't say that. It feels I do agree that something feels new and different. You mentioned that with your 4 components of the proven process, this is the first year that this is fully implemented as a kind of a structure and strategy at the classroom level. I wonder if you could talk a little bit about the monitoring and instructional monitoring and responsiveness and the through line and how new this is to our staff and students, and what it was like before, because I think we need to very clearly be able to differentiate to our families and our students that this is not the way we've done business in the past. And I think if there could be a little bit more understanding of how this is different and what the expectations are related to both the proven process and the through line, I would appreciate just a couple of minutes of explanation.
So I can provide just a little bit of insight from my perspective as we, really started digging deep, I guess, in my first year and a half to be able to look at the data points. One of the things that became really clear is that we didn't have necessarily that, I guess we started with these common formative assessments, so kind of a monthly check-in, if you will, about across the system of how kids were doing and what that skill assessment was in enough time, knowing that the forward exam is once a year and you get the feedback the next year. That's not really valuable for teaching and learning. iReady is better, but still not enough. And so we really went to the common formative assessments aspects of our work, and looking at end of the unit assessments or articulating particular skills, from a literacy standpoint, as an example, reading, to be able to assess and be able to make sure that practice is changing. Because we can assess all we want, but if we're not changing practice and being responsive to that, that's really important. So that's something that was a structure that began, I would say, probably 2 or 3 years ago, and we're building that out and putting it into this larger framework. But that to me was probably kind of the first space that I remember being engaged in from a conversation that we've had developing. Again, just uniformity across the system. Not that these practices weren't happening in pockets, but building consistency in the system. So starting in reading, because that was our priority as we move forward, and then moving that into math. I think this process scales up actually both ways into weekly rigor and engagement aspects, looking at methodologies and student engagement in the classrooms, and then attaching that to what are we seeing on our iReady, and is there a correlation or continuity between what we're observing and how kids are performing. So I would say this is just an extension of that, but that's a little bit of, at least from my 4 years of being involved in developing that. So Erin and Julie probably would have.
I just want to say specifically to the calibrating the feedback loops. One of the things that Dr. Davis did a few years ago was kind of change the structure of our executive team, where we do have the elementary and secondary director supporting principals. So one of the things that we now do with principals that has never been done before, so new practice, is that we're going in with our coordinators and the principals to observe instruction, so that we're building capacity in our principals to know what to look for when they are observing their teachers in math and literacy. And then we're collaborating on what that feedback to the teachers looks like. So, really, like, it's building the capacities in our principals to give that effective feedback and be effectively evaluating their teachers. So that is something with this new structure that we've been able to do that hasn't been done in the past.
I was going to say that also looks like refinement too at the secondary level, in terms of we were at first going in sort of separately, and then we realized our principals needed some work on how to effectively give feedback. So last year we layered in transformational coaching and feedback loops for our principals, and then the addition to that for secondary this year is going in together, principal, myself, and a coordinator, calibrating our feedback as well to make sure we're all talking and feeling that language the same, and being very precise and specific with our feedback to our teachers that align to our practices that we're trying to put into place.
I think I've been in the coordinator role about 11 years, and so the game changer is your investment in the directors of elementary school, having Erin and Kim come around and to be able to support our principals and for me to feel supported in the work that we've been trying to do for math has been a game changer. So that is a totally new process that we've started in the last few years. And that definitely has empowered our principals and our math coaches and just offered that layer of support for us. The other thing that has been a total game changer is our data collection system. So we've also invested in a program that allows us to be able to track that data so we can see that formative and common assessment data at the click of a button when we need to, and that's different too. So now I can see where we are in our pacing and doing a really good job of making sure that all of our schools are staying on pace so that everybody has access to their grade level curriculum and getting that year's worth of instruction in. In the past, we weren't able to monitor that, and so we could reveal pockets of schools that perhaps were only getting to Unit 6 when we needed to get to Unit 8. And so now we have really good ways through a gradebook program that has really helped us to have the conversations so that we can look at that data instantly versus just the lagging indicators. So that's been a game changer too. So those two investments I think have been really huge. That's a game changer.
I think also when you talk about forefront, this is year 2 for you guys in terms of that system management for that formative data. It's year 1 for secondary in that, and we're still trying to get some buy-in to the benefits of putting it into the system, because right now teachers potentially feel like it's just another thing to do and haven't seen the full benefit as we're still early in the year. But as we get to those end of the units and being able to see across 6th grade in our district that these are, standards or, item analysis pieces that are universally low, we can start to then layer those pieces in throughout the rest of the year, which is new for us.
Can I make one comment that will reflect into all these different areas? It seems like you're developing consistency throughout the district as far as teaching materials and the way that you're teaching and the feedback that you're giving. It seems to me, and I'm always taken back by the number of children who are not at grade level and how difficult it must be for a teacher to teach to so many different degrees. So it feels like what you're developing is something that hopefully will get us to more kids being at grade level so teachers have an easier time of being consistent in their teaching practices and materials instead of having to look at such a range of needs of all the students. Is that true?
I would say that's 100% true. We are aiming to control the variance or the range of student needs as far as being on grade level or how far below grade level there are. And through consistency, certainly there will always be students who need additional support. They need to be challenged more because they are maybe in 7th grade and they are performing at, 11th grade level. That would have been me when I was a student. And then we also, we also have students who need additional support. And through this consistency, I think it creates a situation when we get to our optimal state that we don't have so many and so many drastic ranges of needs and skill level. And certainly I'm sure you all hear from teachers who are saying, I'm a 7th grade teacher, but I'm supposed to teach 7th grade material while filling in gaps that maybe students didn't master or have developed when they were in 2nd grade or 3rd grade. And through consistency, we can control for not all of it, but for much of that. And so you're absolutely right. This approach aims to have more consistency so that there's less variance in need. And then where there is variance, it should be a smaller number of students. And we have support available for that. But when the variance is so drastic, it makes it more difficult and less likely that we can actually meet those students' needs.
I also think, Dr. Coleman earlier was talking about just as we're implementing new curriculum, the depth of the professional development and the coaching increases as well and gets more intense. So obviously the first, year or two, as Dr. Herzog said, of implementing a curriculum, teachers are just learning the curriculum. They're learning just the gist of the lesson and what it all entails. And then as we become more familiar with the curriculum, that's where we can really then start to dive a lot deeper, like, okay, I know what I'm doing, I know what the lessons are about, and now I can really think about all of the learners sitting in front of me and how we meet their needs with this grade level rigor in the curriculum.
I get that it takes time, right? But how long until we're at what you could guess that we're at the optimal state?
The research from Math Learning Center for K-5 or for K-5 with Bridges, they said it's 3 to 5 years for a teacher to really catch their stride, to have that comfortable feeling, to be able to really leverage the program to its fullest capacity and meet the needs of all their students.
Okay.
And I think one of the things to remember as we're looking at tonight's data being a forward exam too, a lot of what we're talking about is skill development. There's also a dose of reality that this is standardized test taking. And so our ability to practice and make sure that our students regularly see forward exam problems to be able to work through and have practice problems to work through on a weekly basis, on a regular basis, is going to be really important because, again, we need to improve skills. So that's why this is a both and, it's not an either or. But we want to make sure that as our kids build skills, they also have the practice in the standardized test so they can perform well. They can use those skills and apply it to the test, because if they have the skills but can't apply it to the test, then that's not going to show up here. So there's a lift here that's kind of an and both that I wanted to also point out. And that goes for language arts and reading along with math for tonight's conversation.
And for the ACTs.
And for the ACTs, right.
I think the other layer too, Mr. Wright, is as we think about the 3 to 5 year, we're also bringing in new teachers every year too. That some of that also needs different levels of support, right? As a new teacher looks different than a 3 to 5 year teacher veteran in the curriculum as well. So you're continually building that support as we go, so that level looks different as well.
Thank you.
Okay, so strategies for improvement. So at the elementary level, we're really focusing our professional development this year on providing teachers with that clarity, support, and the resources needed to effectively plan and prepare to teach Bridges 3rd edition with integrity. So again, it's that professional development continuing with our instructional materials. 6-8, same thing.
Same thing. I mean, it's a new curriculum, and so it's not only supporting them understanding the new curriculum, but also letting go of what they've maybe done in the past that felt comfortable and what they really felt good with. So intentionally and purposely planning as a team, and as well as layering in like the item analysis piece from our forward to say these are where we're lagging in our skills, and these are where we need to purposely put that in, and we're doing that as a team within buildings.
Can I ask one point of clarification? Is this is the first school year with Bridges 3rd edition and illustrative math, right? Or last year was?
The second
year.
school
Okay,
year.
thank you.
Correct. Yes. We've already talked a little bit about Forefront Education. That is the program that Julie referred to that allows our teachers to really track the data and have the student data at their fingertips. So using that data for planning and preparation. And then also regrounding and pacing expectations and the understanding of critical area standards for K through 8. So really making sure that our teachers are staying on pace. We found, Julie did a really extensive item analysis of forward exam and kind of aligned the critical area standards that students are demonstrating on the forward exam with where they fall in our Bridges 3rd edition curriculum. And pacing really does matter. If we want our children to have exposure and experiences with some of the things that they're being assessed on in the forward exam, it's really important for us to be pacing. And Forefront, that program Forefront, really allows us to monitor that pacing and work with principals to be having conversations with teachers to really keep that pacing going.
Same thing in 6-8. Jan did an amazing job looking at the skills and the standards that we were the lowest in, and each grade has 2 to 3 areas that were significantly lower than the other standards in. And so now that we know that, where does that come in the curriculum? And is it repeated, and how soon or how often are they practicing before they take the forward? So we're in conversations of potentially adjusting sequencing to make sure they're at least hitting some of these that were really low before the forward comes into play. And again, being a newer curriculum, those are new things you learn as you go through that piece.
And to put it into perspective, why we talk about in the first point, clarity and support, if you put yourself in the mind of an elementary teacher using a new math curriculum and a new literacy curriculum, we also have to be gracious as we provide clarity and support, knowing that we are asking our teachers to carry a significant load with learning 2 new resources while teaching students across the range of needs that exist in their classroom. It is much more difficult than many of our teachers make it look. I mean, they are doing extremely difficult work, and they do it with a smile. But on the inside, they may not always be smiling. And so I just want to emphasize the clarity and support because I understand that while we're going through such significant change in our system to elevate student achievement, we're doing so with human beings who also are learning new materials and new skills to do this work. And just want to emphasize that and make sure that our educators know that we see and appreciate the work that they're doing to help students meet these expectations.
Okay, any other math questions?
I got some comments. I mean, I think first, we talked about Bridges 3, we're 2 years into that, but we were in Bridges 2, right? So this isn't a complete change in curriculum. It's going from one edition to another. It's different, but it's not hugely different. I think...
agree with you.
Okay.
But there is enough difference that professional development is definitely important.
Right, I fully agree with that. I think we had this conversation at Education Committee this morning, and I think one of the things that we kind of talked about was, I think Ms. Cole, I think I heard from you, we were kind of talking about, well, what are the detractors, right? That in any environment, we've got these strategies, we've got these things that we want to do, but there are also detractors. And I think we talked about, there's behavioral issues, and we could address that through classroom management. But to the extent that those things happen, they take away from what we're seeing here at the end stage. And so I think there are other things than just behavioral issues. And it got me thinking today about, well, what else has changed in this district? And one thing that I thought of today and went and looked up was, for example, Menominee Elementary School. There, if I went and I looked at the prior year, and in the prior year, it was actually, we didn't have Menominee Elementary, right? That was Merrill, that was Webster, and that was Washington. The prior year, the composite of those 3 schools was at 43.6%. And then last year at Menominee, it dropped down to 29.4%. And that's a drop of 14.1%. And we know that research tells us that neighborhood schools are better than larger schools, and larger schools are better than mega schools. And I'm not going to call Menominee a mega school, but we know that smaller schools do give us successful things. And I have data here looking at the Menominee example that demonstrates that making that combination of schools resulted in a drop of 14.1%. And so I'd go back to what Dr. Coleman, you started off with saying, more than one thing can be true, right? That it could be the case that all these strategies are the right strategies, but we're also making other strategic plans, like consolidation of schools, that may have an adverse impact. And it could be the case that what we are seeing here in math, in this particular case, overall across the district, a drop of a little more than 4%, could be in part because we made that decision. And so my concern is there are all these different things that are going to impact academic achievement. And we can say it's an implementation dip. We can say maybe it was the impact, the 14.1% drop from Menominee. I don't know what it is, and I'm not going to be able to ferret that out from the data necessarily, but all I can do is look to the administrators and say, we can't have it go down anymore. That it's one thing, I think the last several years I've been concerned about, we had goals set up for Forward and the iReady that was looking for increases, and we never hit those increases. Well, that's one thing, but this is now a decrease in math to a statistically significant extent, and I'm going, I don't believe that that happens just from an implementation dip going from Bridges 2 to Bridges 3. I don't see that, and so I think we've got to be looking more, expand our thoughts in terms of the things that we are looking at that are potentially adversely impacting academic achievement. And if in fact combining of schools is something that is adversely impacting us, well then we're really in trouble, because we convinced the community of doing a lot more of that in the upcoming years. And so my fear is, are we sitting here, maybe you guys are doing the right strategy, maybe everything that you have presented here for the strategy is the right thing, but maybe those strategies don't overcome the adverse impact of making larger schools potentially. I don't know that that's the sole problem. I don't know that that definitively is the problem in this particular case, but it's data that a 14.1% reduction is a large drop, and that scares me. That scares me immensely here. So I hear it, but what I'm struggling with is every year I kind of hear similar things. A couple of years ago it was curriculum. Last year it was kind of starting with this, and I appreciate we're now getting into it, and I hope that this works out. But at the end of the day, all I can do as a board member is evaluate Dr. Davis here, and I hope that we're on the right path. But if we don't see improvement, at some point you got to go, well, maybe it's time for a change in leadership if we're not seeing improvement. And that's where I was alluding to this morning. That's not what I want to see. What I want is for us to catch this early, so that we don't have to be having those sorts of conversations.
Absolutely. So, and if I can build on that a little bit, and I don't know if we can go back to the slide just related to the through line. I think that would be important as we're looking at, clarity and accountability throughout the system, as we're looking at different environments and combining schools, that type of thing. Our responses in different spaces are going to be according to what's going on in those spaces. So what we do at Menominee doesn't necessarily mean we're going to do something exactly at another environment, whether it be Franklin or Oakwood or Lakeside. Like, they're all going to have some unique context to it. We want consistency, certainly, of rigor and engagement, but our response, and the reason why we built in our monitoring as we are and as we're maturing that, is so our response can be as immediate as possible, and that we have data points that we can look at. Because as the board holds me accountable, I'm I'm working with Dr. Coleman, working with the directors who are working with the principals, who are working with the teachers. So the accountability is through this through line all the way down to classroom instruction, with the expectation that we are teaching more consistently and that we have our students learning more, and we can prove that. And so a classroom teacher can just turn around and prove, like, yes, like based on the reviews that I've got through my rigor and engagement walkthroughs, what I'm getting on my monthly formative assessments, end of the unit assessments, and my iReady exams, or my iReady assessments, I can show you that this is the progress that's made. And probably more important than that is, here's what I'm going to do next, what I learned from this data that I'm going to do next to be able to improve instruction, right, and the experience for kids. So I just wanted to reference just the earlier mark around the through line. That's the way that we're building, very strategically building in that accountability and the responsiveness. So although we meet once a year to talk about the forward exam, we want to make sure that we're meeting weekly, right, and giving that feedback loop accordingly. And I would expect the board, and from my interview, for my first time back in Oshkosh, right, we said, like, we're leaning into accountability. Like, this is part of what we need to build within the system. What we've worked through and what we're building, continue to evolve, is providing clarity of what that means within the system, right? And making sure that everybody understands, like, this is the assessments that we're looking at, here's how it's used, and, you know, in our size of system, we need room to scale that up. So I just wanted to be able to provide that, kind of looping back into the accountability aspect of it. We welcome that, and for me, like, that's something that, when I know what the scoreboard is, like, now I can start to play, right? Like, I can start to make progress and work towards that, if you'll accept the athletic, metaphor. Like, I need to see the scoreboard. That through line provides that in a dashboard that we're aligning the system to. And again, continuing to evolve that. But yes, it's 3 to 5 years from the research aspect of it, but I can tell you that there's urgency. There's urgency that Dr. Coleman and I meet on a weekly basis with the executive team, looking at our dashboards of how rigor and engagement is seen. And if it's not, then what are we doing about it? So, and that happens, again, we're working through that all the way down the system. So I just wanted to make sure we can bring that back to earlier conversations.
I'd also like to mention, if we look back at the demographics and how they continue to change, I think the range of students that we are teaching has certainly expanded since last year and since the 21-22 year, which is probably our COVID year, or just coming out of COVID year. We can't forget that. Many of our students have not taken standardized tests before, and I'm not making excuses, but it certainly is a consideration that we need to look at, especially looking at the percentages that we are looking at. As far as English learners and students with disabilities, they continue to go up, and our teachers do a fantastic job of meeting the needs of all of our students.
Go ahead.
I think that everyone is doing their best, right? And I've been up here for a little while now, 4 or 5 years, and we've had a lot of discussions on this. For whatever reason, this time I feel like we really have to get this right. I feel like and then that's been said so many times up here. I don't even know, right? But the biggest threat to this district is the continual loss of students and drop in enrollment. And I think that people make the decision on where they're going to send their kid, in my opinion, based on 3 things: how they feel about the culture and safety, how they feel about academic rigor, and then third, which follows closely, I think, is extracurriculars and athletics. And I think people put those things in a box and they make a decision. And I'm fearful because I look at that data, and this is a 25-mile radius where 41 connects everything. And all a parent has to do is say, I want to drive 10 miles that way, or I want to drive 20 miles that way. And when 200 people or 185 people decide, I'm going to take my kid that way, the most alarming number, 122 for homeschooling, then that results in that number times the number we get reimbursed, which I don't know exactly, 12 to 13K, which then we then have to reconfigure and figure out in the system. So I know everyone's doing their best. We are, right? But in my opinion, we have to start hitting on at least 2 or 3 of those things. And sooner than later, or else we're not going to be winning in the area. And I haven't spoke on that to anyone in a while, but it's just what I'm hearing. That's what I feel based on my experience in the area, which is more vast now than it used to be. And that's my comment.
Thank you.
Still have a couple subjects, don't we?
Dr. Herzog and then Dr.
Thank you.
Well, I'm going to wait till they're done.
Okay.
As someone who spent 20 years in this district working in the area of curriculum, I can think of many variables that might explain changes from one year to the next that go beyond the size of a school. For example, English learners, when they first come to this country, it doesn't matter how long they've been here. They could have arrived yesterday, but they'll take the standardized test, and it usually takes them 3 to 5 years before they're proficient to be able to score proficiently on those tests. So it's not only the number of newcomers to the country, but it's the number of students who relocate within this country, which is referred to, I believe, as secondary migration. The number of students with special needs is another variable that impacts student performance, student learning, and overall mobility of students. I recall conversations with teachers in one of our smaller elementary buildings who would say, I began the year with 24 students, I ended the year with 24 students, but only a certain percentage of those were there all year long. And I know we've seen and heard other data presented over time which suggests that when students are with us for a full academic year, from one year to the next, they tend to do better. So there are a lot of variables that go into what may change a score beyond the size of a building. And there are many examples of schools throughout the state that are the size of Menominee or the size of Val Phillips, where they are doing well. And maybe there's some things we can learn from those larger buildings. But the overall size of the building is not necessarily an indication that that is a problem. So I think I've heard from the people who have presented over time that you have dug deeper. You have taken deep dives into data that maybe we don't look at or that aren't shared with us, but you work to see what is the root cause. I'm not looking for excuses here. I'm looking for explanations. And to me, there's a difference. So we can look at scores in a building and change over time, but what else has changed that might explain some of those variables? So I think taking deeper dives into the data would be instructional for those of you who are providing the leadership district-wide so that you can work with those buildings to figure out what can we do. Because I do believe that all students are important. The law states that every student is entitled to a free and public education, and so legally, and I would say morally, we have an obligation to educate all students and figure out what is working and what isn't, and making sure that all students are showing gains.
Can I make one comment about, I understand the points that are made of pulling out a changing demographic in our district. We cannot scapegoat our newcomers. We cannot scapegoat our students who have disabilities. They make up, we have a systematic problem here. It is a problem that affects most of our students. Over half of our kids are not proficient. I work very closely with this group of students and families. They are some of the brightest, smartest, most adaptive people who are gonna get our test scores up. And guess what? Their scores are not that much worse than the whole district's. So please be careful as we do have these conversations with any type of insinuation that it's not a systemic problem. This is systematic and a systemic failure of all of our students. So maybe going to ELA?
Yeah. Should we move to ELA? Dr. Ford, did you have anything?
Oh, I'm going to wait till the Q&A slide. I'm like Pavlov's dog. I wait till it's the bell.
All right, good evening. All right, for our forward, it looks similar in math in that our student performance is not where we want it to do. It did slightly decline, and that does not reflect where we want to be. But there were some trends that we saw in these groups of English learners, Asian and Hispanic students in grades 6 and 8 that would suggest that we're increasing in the percentage that are assessing at or above proficiency on the Wisconsin Forward. You can see where we are in the graph. We have not changed in our position, and we're really hoping that it was going to be in a different space than it is this year. You can see that our upward trend in ELA dipped slightly in 2025. And then again, looking at our demographic proficiencies, you can see that this is where you can see the English learners experiencing slight gains of performing at or above proficiency. And here you can see students in the Asian and Hispanic groups experiencing small percentage gains as well. And then when you looked over all of the grade levels, grades 6 and 8 do have very modest but some increase in the percentage of students performing at or above proficiency. Okay, and so you've heard about our 4 components of our proven process. I think the piece that looks a little bit different this year is when we start talking about our teachers and what they're doing, which is in addition to is the personalized reading plan. Like that started last year, that's in full-fledged this year, and it moved into 4th grade as well. So that is another piece that is a part of this. Again, we're doing rigor and engagement rubric, calibrated feedback loops. Because it's CKLA this year, we're I would say descending with our literacy coaches, Linda, myself, and the principal, where we're splitting up into all the classrooms at a school and then coming back together to debrief. That's helping us know where is it that we need to really get under to help support or give clarity, because it is a brand new curriculum, and to provide guidance, and then also an opportunity to give feedback to the teachers, celebrations, and sometimes like, oh, here's that next step, because we all can utilize from that.
Yeah, and I would say it also allows us to see where are those points of when a teacher, especially a new teacher, needs to see what does that look like. We are getting into enough spaces to go, and that's what it looks like here, and utilize our experts, as they get to know the curriculum.
Again, we're using formative assessments along the way. Part of that is utilizing CKLA, and Linda and her team of literacy coaches have done a really nice job of outlining very clearly for teachers what that looks like, so that hopefully there's more ease to that full piece. As far as common formative assessments, again, we have our common formative assessments that we're building into CKLA. We are in the middle of, we just adopted, or I shouldn't say adopted, but we're using NextPath this year. And so Lynn and I actually met with NextPath today to talk about how to build in the CKLA unit so that it's easier for teachers to input that information, and also easier to do an analysis at the teacher level, the school level, and at the district level. It's something that they had for CKLA 2, but we need to build for CKLA 3 because it's brand new.
Can you just give a brief of what NextPath is and how it's used?
Yeah, so we used to use EduClimber, a data warehouse, and NextPath is our data warehouse that we're using right now that allows teachers just like to be able to see in the moment time on formative assessments. Last year we built our own dashboards of our common formative assessments. This year we're able to utilize what's part of our comprehensive curriculum. So we're using those unit assessments and then using NextPath to really give us that item analysis of what standards are students excelling in, where do we need to look, and we can make some comparisons between where students struggled on different standards on forward that we have that, and where they may need some support right along the way. So it's so important that we look at it now rather than wait till even mid-year or end of year so that we can see how we can support our students.
And sorry, and the only thing last thing I'll add about for the forward exam, and Dr. Davis explained this a little bit, but the same is true for ELA, how we will use forward test prep, and that will be integrated into the teaching and learning experiences that students have throughout the year so that they have more opportunity to practice with the test, practice demonstrating their skills in the ways that they're asked to on the forward exam. This is a strategy that we certainly are aware of. Many school districts around the state and around the nation use this as an approach to make sure students have the confidence and the readiness to demonstrate their proficiency on the forward exam. And so while we have, as a through line, the forward exam as a lagging indicator, we certainly use some of those practice questions throughout, and we'll use those practice questions throughout the units that students engage in so that they are prepared to demonstrate their mastery in that way.
And that was, the way that we looked at that is where are the areas that needed the most lift that students were struggling in. And so that's the guidance that's being given to teachers in order to know, like we're doing a daily slide for 5 minutes of just how do you help support them with understanding how forward questions are written, because really they're doing it in CKLA, it just might have a different feel, and we want them to be able to shine and show their excellence and just understand how the two are the same but might just look a little bit different.
And to be clear, test taking and those test questions is a genre of literacy. It's a genre of its own, and we need to spend some time. It's not an equal time. We balance it with a few minutes of this is how you can show what you know and help our students to some guidance in how does that look and what are those test taking strategies that they will need through their academic career.
And so to sum that up, some of the strategies that we're using, it's really to deepen the use of our high quality curriculum materials, and that's both CKLA and StudySync. And then really taking a look at that data and using it in real time to look at where we can continue to strengthen. And then, of course, to apply that student achievement data to identify and leverage targeted support. And then align our PD, our coaching, and our feedback. And we do that around the rigorous engagement techniques that we've shared throughout. So, yeah, that's continuing, and we're really excited about what the teachers are doing in their classrooms, and this is again something new where they are taking some of the professional development time, and as the techniques are being shared, they are going right into the materials, no matter if it's literacy or math or other subject areas, and where would that work the best to really put in these techniques to engage our kids.
And I would say at the secondary level, just to be a little bit more specific of strategies for improvement is, again, specifically those learning walks with the director, the principal, and the coordinator, as well as Dr. Davis talked about common formative assessments. The first year we put that into place was also the first year that we used StudySync. So those common formative assessments were aligned to the iReady piece and not necessarily StudySync. And so we did a better job year 2 refining what those common formative assessments look like. And then through feedback, we this year have really moved the CFA cycles into the curriculum rather than separate from the curriculum, so it doesn't seem like an event for the students. It's layered in as that to improve sort of that instructional response and create consistency for them. And so that's new this year that we're doing as we've learned more about StudySync, and I think that's important to bring to the forefront. And then the data analysis that Teresa did, our secondary literacy coordinator, came up with 7 out of 9 of our standards that we were consistently our greatest need all fell within our language standards. And so really building the capacity of where do we see that and how do we scaffold that for all of our learners to be able to get practice on that so that doesn't become a trend going forward. So.
All right, shall we can take questions on this now, and then after that we'll go into ACT if that works.
Yeah, I can throw comments out now that my slide's up there. Sorry, I've been furiously taking notes. Hopefully I'll be coherent, but thank you for that presentation, and thanks to my colleagues for all their comments. I guess, I mean, bottom line is, I think we all know we have to do better, but when I say that, I start with the top of the org chart for OASD. I don't know if you've ever looked at that. You all keep that updated, because I noticed Brian Yerke's on there. But we're at the top of it as the school board. I mean, ultimately, we're responsible for unsatisfactory outcomes like the ones I think we're seeing today, and we're responsible for creating positive change. And if that doesn't happen, when we talk about accountability, I think accountability begins with us. So where do we go from here? I wish it was like Moneyball. I wish it was simple. I wish we could just say that, yeah, we have some bad teachers, let's get rid of them. I wish we could say we have some bad buildings, let's get rid of them. We just get more money, pass another referendum. It's never that easy. You can look at the last 30 years or so, probably longer than that, but Oshkosh has changed. Our demographics have changed, our student demographics, their needs have changed. Our state has changed. School finance has changed. And bottom line is we have to keep up with that change, and I don't think we have. I'm not interested in looking backwards. I think it's just a reality. I think we've atrophied a little bit. But bottom line is our academic and financial foundation doesn't support either our facility footprint or our academic goals. So I know the word foundation has been thrown around, but we have to keep building that stronger foundation. So what's the purpose of that foundation? Well, I think it has to be to support student academic growth and not serve the needs of adults. And I think as we go through some very difficult decisions in the next year, the next 2 years, next 3 years, that has to be our guiding principle, because we're going to be getting a lot of pressure from all kinds of adults in the community, in this room, to do things that maybe are not in the best interest of student outcomes. So that's going to have to be a guiding principle, at least in my opinion. I think we're going to have to start speaking a common language so we don't get bogged down in these secondary debates that are distracting us so often. We can't get distracted by the minutia. We have to set clear expectations for what we want to see out of Superintendent Davis so that we can hold him accountable for higher expectations, and ultimately so the public can hold us accountable for achieving those higher expectations. And I know this is a later conversation, not even tonight, but we have to keep right-sizing this district in a manner consistent with an academic outcome-focused strategic plan. We have to integrate these things. We keep debating, should we focus on facilities, should we focus on school size versus academic outcomes? I mean, that's not a debate that leads to anywhere good. These things are either going to be integrated, and we're able to articulate to the community how they're integrated and how they reinforce each other, or we're not going to accomplish any of those goals. And I think these things are all in motion, and I feel good about the leadership team we have in place, but I think we as a board have to be prepared to be held accountable for it if we can't get it done, because we are the top of the org chart. So I'm looking forward to moving forward, and I appreciate us having candor tonight because, yeah, I mean, we send our kids to this district. All of us have been through this, either with friends, relatives, or family, and I'm not comfortable with us being below the state average in all these different categories. That's not an acceptable thing, so we got to turn that around. And I think we can do it, but I do think it has to start with us. So thanks.
Thank you very much. Anyone else?
We'll keep on
ACT.
moving.
So with our ACT report, again, the demographic slide that you've seen over and over on the presentation is the same here. Our KPI aligns to the overall composite score for our ACT, and we have declined over the last 5 years, but relatively stagnant over the last 3 years. Remember that the composite score is the ELA score, the math score, the science score, and the STEM score. So it's the overall score for those areas. So even though this is not what we want to see as the composite score going down, there are some highlights in the ACT that I think are important to address. So we've seen significant increases in specific groups of students meeting benchmarks on the 2025 ACT and ELA. Again, and it wasn't great, but it still was an increase, a modest increase in the ELA score on the ACT. So our composite went down, but ELA went up. So again, overall, I think that's a highlight that we should be kind of talking about. Clicker's not working that great. Okay. So when we look at the upward trend in ELA, continued in 2025 after some declines in 21 through 23. And so what we can see is, again, it's a modest increase for the overall for our ELA. But as we get through the presentation, you're going to see some specific groups that we do want to highlight. So our English learners met benchmark for the first time. Our students with economic disadvantage increased their percentage, and students with special education nearly doubled their percent. And in all of these categories, of these three categories, it's the highest our percentage has been over the last 5 years. So still have gaps, and I'm not proud of the gaps, and we have to continue to work on that, but we are seeing some of those targeted pieces and our change to our universal instruction that we're doing making a difference for our population of students. Our Black students more than doubled their percent meeting benchmark. Again, although achievement gaps persist, but that's a significant gain from last year to this year that we had twice as many. Again, the highest it's been in 5 years. We've talked about the proven process. I think the only thing different that I would sort of push on here is at the high school level, we're still looking at that cohesive universal piece of instruction in terms of we have a curriculum for K-8 for literacy. We do not have that in the English right now for high school. So that's something that we're starting to explore and look at. But what we have done for that high quality instructional material is add no red ink, which is new to specifically target our grammar area or English area for our ACT, which is a grounding resource for our teachers. Some of the responsive improvements, alignment was that we wanted to ensure that all student groups have access to grade level material. Again, I think this is part of the gains that we're seeing. We're moving to that C3 model in our high schools, both high schools, making sure that we are doing less, meeting students where they're at, and giving them the rigor that they need and scaffolding the supports they need to be able to handle and be able to perform on a standardized based test that like the ACT. So that is definitely something where we are attributing some of our gains to our students with disabilities, as well as some of our other student population group is that C3 model, which is the co-plan to co-serve to co-learn model. So working with our specialist teachers to layer those scaffold supports within the regular curriculum so they have access to that. Build our teacher expertise in the ACT assessment. So really looking at the item analysis and really looking at what are we doing well and where do we need to layer that, and that was where the decision to add no red ink came in. So I think that's important to say that our teachers are diving into that and giving our students the practice before seeing it on the ACT. Providing professional development and coaching around engagement. So a big shift that has happened at the secondary level in terms of professional development is oftentimes our PD time was used for collaboration of completion of tasks and not learning and growing and advocating in your profession. And so there is, for the first time, our 6th through 12th grade teachers are going through some engagement strategies with the grounding resource of Teach Like a Champion. And so that's been a shift, as well as their desire. Each department had put in what professional development they wanted to grow on. And so their development looks different based on the departments. Again, something that I think is important to address is our principals are also continuing to use the feedback model that they were trained in last year to give that specific evidence-based feedback when they're doing the observations, and trying to align that to the engagement strategies. So I talked about many of these, but the targeted in English grammar proficiency is the no red ink, which is the added piece that I think is important to do. We've seen really good success. I don't know, Teresa, if you want to come up and talk about this at all, but between our staff and our students, even the feedback from our students that we got unsolicited was that if they aren't doing anything else, they feel engaged in the no red ink. So I feel like that's a really positive push. Anything else you would add?
It's just been really positive for staff and students both, and students who sometimes don't always feel success in their English classes feel it in some ways with this particular resource, so that's been nice.
And then again, that feedback loop is super important. Anything else you would add for the English? No? Okay. So any questions, do you want questions after the English part, or want to keep going through it all? Keep going? Okay. So then again, similar to our ELA in our ACT, we had modest increases for our overall performance, but again, it was an increase. So our math and our ELA did go up, even though our composite went down. So I think that's important to make sure that we continue to emphasize. But we did see some significant achievement increases in specific groups, just like we did in ELA. So again, not huge, but we're not going downward. So anything going up, I take as a win in terms of the overall ACT benchmark. So remember, this is proficiency to the benchmark that they're looking at for ACT. Our English learners, again, are economically disadvantaged, and our special ed also, although there are gaps, they did see increases in percent of meeting proficiency. So again, this is an indicator that the work of the C3 planning is making a difference at our secondary level, and our targeted professional development as well. Our Asian, Hispanic, and white students also increased slightly of the percent of students who met the ACT benchmark. You've heard about the proven process enough. I don't need to go through that piece with you. And so based on the data that we got with our ACT, what are we doing specifically, making sure that we are truly looking at building their expertise in the ACT assessment. Last year, our math teachers spent a lot of time looking at the ACT data and analysis and putting in sort of bell ringers or daily slides to get practice on the items that we were low on. We've now pushed that and moved that to our pre-ACT data, because again, they take that in 9th and 10th grade. That should be guiding what we're doing for our ACT. And again, really targeting algebra proficiency. This is our highest priority area for improvement that we need. And then our algebra teachers are now truly aligning their assessments in the curriculum to the state math standards, which we haven't done in many years, which I think is important to know. Like, based on the data that we're seeing and the trends that we're seeing, we're not just using last year's data, but algebra continues to come up as an area that we need to build their capacity on. So we need to layer that throughout. And then also making sure a change that we've done this year that will go into this year is in January, our math students in junior year, instead of taking a math final, will actually take the practice ACT for math as their final for the semester in January. Again, to get exposure to what does the test look like, practice sample problems for what that looks like. Jan, would you, anything on that? Okay.
Would you consider doing that for literacy or for ELA as well, the practice test?
It's optional right now for the ELA because of just the way the format of the test is right now. So it's out there as an option, but we're making it mandatory for the math side of it.
One of the things I can actually add to that, so sitting back here, is that most of the, I'll come, yeah. Actually, with no red ink, because the English grammar was our focus, most of the teachers are going to be using there is an assessment that's ACT aligned to practice as well as one component of their final this year. It's just not across the board quite yet, as they figured out how to incorporate it, because we also are responsible for English and writing. So. Okay.
This is more of a comment than a question.
With going through this last year and like doing the as well and like the ACT questions, I will say that it did make a difference for my score at least, because I took the practice one before the actual one, and there was a big difference in my score. So just know that even on an individual basis, it does.
Thanks, Campbell.
That's for sure.
Yeah, what we're doing here, I mean, the kids I've talked to, their scores have went up going through this process, including my own, and it's on track to be where it needs to be. I know algebra is a focal point, because algebra can be hard for a lot of kids. You know what I mean? And it can get more complex and harder, and kids have to use rigor and get the right guidance and determination to get through some of that stuff. So I see that with kids while they're going through the district.
Maddie?
And I think what's really important too about like the prep stuff is we've talked about like assessments so much tonight, and that's clearly a very important part about not only for you but also for us. Assessments make up majority of our grades, and like grades are very important to everyone. And so I feel like a big thing with tests right now is you're working to do good on the test, because the next upcoming test is part of your grade. So when you're looking at one individual test, it's easy because you know exactly what you have to focus on. But when you come to stuff with like the ACTs and the more long-term information, it's not just, you're not studying just one unit of information, you're not studying just one subject of information. It's an entire like culmination of lots of things. So having stuff to prepare for that, I feel like is really important, because you can't just study for the test like we do for all the other tests, because there's a lot more that goes into it than just one class subject information that you learned 2 weeks ago. It's everything that you've learned within the last couple of years that all ties together, and you have to work on how all of it, not only each individual information, but how the information in each subject works together to kind of like, it's not just individual information, it's the entire subject as a whole and how it connects. So I think like the prep stuff is so important because it helps you kind of understand how all of it works and the way that it's going to be set up and how the information is going to be like portrayed to you. So
yeah, especially if those certain concepts and ideas we haven't touched on in like years, because you know, like you take a break and do geometry and a lot of our algebra like concepts. So it's a good thing.
Yeah. And it doesn't just start in 9th grade. The other thing that Jan and myself are working at is how to build those skills in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade so that they have the foundational skills to be able to handle algebra. And what does that look like when students don't reach that? What can we put into place for summer work and things like that that we can have for help to it?
Want to have any comments?
I mean, I don't have a closing comment. Do you want to go first, Tim, or do you have stuff? All right.
I'm still thinking.
Okay. I mean, I think I feel like I need to make an overall comment on this of like, as we've been looking at this, of course, if the question is asked if I'm happy with our achievement scores, I mean, I'm not going to swear tonight, but I think, heck no. I'm really disappointed, I'm really angry, and I'm really sad about this, and I'm also heartbroken for the kids who have not had the educational opportunities that they are entitled to. But that disappointment, anger, sadness, and heartbreak is not directed at the professionals who are now finally utilizing data, following science of reading, the science of education, and who are now being supported by high-quality curricular tools and relevant, intense, organized professional development and collaboration, who are building the foundation of an educational system ingrained with rigor and engagement. And that disappointment sure as heck, and that anger and sadness sure as heck is not directed at the young scholars in this district who continue to be discounted and harmed in a system that hasn't yet helped them succeed. I am, though, very sad and disappointed and angry that our district failed in so many ways for so long, and that these kids are still being harmed. That kids didn't get the educational opportunities they deserved for some kids at least 10 years. And they aren't now able to achieve as they should, as I hope they and their teachers believe that they can. It's these kids that I'm heartbroken for, and I'm sad and disappointed and angry about all the wasted time and potential. I'm speaking for those kids whose names I know and the promise that I see in them, who are still struggling, through the remnants of a failed system. We have failed them for so long, of course, now they still are failing. But I will not linger on that failure. I will acknowledge it and learn from it, and I hope that all of us have too. Tonight I'll also express hope. I express belief and I express commitment to the systematic changes we're making. We are doing the hard work. We're building that foundation for success. We all like the same analogy, apparently. The thing with building that foundation is that you have to sometimes tear down what was there before, and it takes a really long time between setting the brick and mortar and seeing that new, beautiful building. I will keep fighting for this because every child has the right to read and deserves an education. Heck, they even deserve a quality education. That would be like a big bonus. Because I don't believe that if you just put a kid in the classroom, they'll learn. I think it takes a lot of work, and for students and from the students and for the professionals supporting them. And it's up to us as a board to make that happen and to set that expectation and that framework. Our students deserve it, and I'm glad that we are finally doing that hard work. And I'm sorry that numbers are still terrible.
Okay. Tim, do you want to go? I have some closing remarks, but I'll let you go first.
Yeah, I'll say some things. I agree with Molly on many things there. I think what I struggle with, though, is I continue to hear educational rhetoric, and it's not rhetoric as if we speak education here, and this is your expertise. It's what you talk about all the time, and I struggle with our community watching these meetings, and they hear this and they don't understand half of what we're talking about, unfortunately. And all they look at is kind of what Dr. Davis said, the scoreboard, and kind of what Mr. Wright was talking about. Hey, what am I going to compare it to? I'm going to compare it to the neighboring districts. And we can sit here and reason through why we're doing a good job. But then the same thing that Dr. Ford was talking about, all of this has financial implications. If they're looking at the alternative districts, and they don't have to look too far, and they see a much higher number, man, 10 miles is pretty easy to make it, to do what I think I'm doing for my kid. So, again, I struggle with, there are so many variables in this. I understand what you want to do, and I don't disagree with anything that you have said in terms of your strategies. But at the end of the day, we can't tease it all out. But I agree with Dr. Ford that it's on us as a school board. We have to hold to a standard and hold people accountable. I don't want to be sitting on this school board 10 years from now and not having found any change. That would be catastrophic to me. I couldn't do that. So somehow, some way, it has to get done. I'm not the person to tell you what you have to do, but the scoreboard is, in the Ford exam, we went down in math by 4.4%, and we're second to last in the neighborhood. In English language arts, we went down 2.3%, and we're third to last in the neighborhood. It's not a good scoreboard, and we saw some glimmers of hope in ACT, and I appreciate that, but the composite score, it's not a good scoreboard to be looking at, and we do have to figure out how to do better, and I hope you guys do figure it out. So that's my closing for tonight.
If I could just before you, just to build on that, because I think that's important, and we'll certainly continue our work as was outlined tonight. I think just to connect your words just to what Dr. Ford had talked about, being able to think from a board standpoint, like what is the action, right? And so as we're looking at our strategic plan and to be able to identify clearly what that scoreboard is, because right now we're in a strategic plan annual strategic plan that has a lot of inputs to it. So safety, technology, facilities plan. I think being able to evolve that to make sure that that is exclusive to outputs and that we're results focused, I think can be important. And to be able to capture things, achievement and growth are some opportunities, I think some tangible opportunities that board members can take over the next 2 to 3 months that I'll work with you on, work with our staff on to make sure that we're coordinating all of this work, right? So all of this needs to be able to walk together. And there's some really important things I think that we can do to solidify that within the system over the next 2 to 3 months. So.
Thank you very much. My closing comments, I am rarely Pollyanna, and there's a lot of people that may be at home tonight saying, well, how difficult can this be to plan reading and math? It's not rocket science. Well, it appears it is rocket science because the time and effort and the coordination that you have put into this educational experience, I agree with everything that Molly said, and we need to do better, yes. However, I see a glimmer of hope. Oh, I just got a shiver. I see a glimmer of hope. I see the opportunity to improve our proficiency. I see the opportunity to improve our growth. This has been a learning experience for all of us, and especially you, all of you, and all the teachers out there that have given their time and talents to learn something brand new. We may have teachers out there that did the same thing every year for 20 years, 25 years, and how challenging it has been for them to accept this new reality of our expectations. So I want to thank you. I want to get better. Obviously, we have to. But I do think that we can, and I want to say go forward, carry on, and give us the numbers that we deserve for our community and for our district.
Well said, Mrs. Wyman.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, moving into consent resolution agenda. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Ms. Ford and DeWitt?
Yes.
Yep.
Right. Ford?
Aye.
Herzog?
Aye.
Hess?
Aye.
Smeltley?
Aye.
Wright?
Aye.
Wyman?
Aye.
DeWitt?
Aye.
Resolution carries.
Thank you. Individually considered resolutions. Number 3 is the approval of the 26-27 district calendar. Is there a motion to discuss?
So move. Barb.
Herzog?
Second.
Smeltnik?
So as you know, our district calendar committee on an annual basis reviews the calendar for next year. Last year, there had been a request to be able to get at least a draft for the second year, so we're always kind of 2 years out. And so what the approval is for tonight is to be able to approve next year's calendar, which we appreciate Dr. Coleman's leadership, Dr. Brown's leadership, and everybody that did some hard work on the calendar to be able to get it out this soon. Certainly helpful and ahead of schedule from where we had been in previous years. But then also the work to be able to put together a good working draft for 2 years from now. So that's something that we roll up, and I think that helps our efficiency as we're moving forward. So I just want to thank you for your leadership on that. Got a lot of representation, and that goes into that work.
Okay. Discussion, questions? Dr. Herzog?
One thing I wonder about in light of the extensive discussion on student performance, at what point do we perhaps shorten the time frame for professional development in August and add student contact days in our calendar?
So we did entertain that idea as a part of planning for the calendar. So to decrease the number of days in August and add those instructional days during the year would mean fewer professional development days that we have during, which we can do. It would either mean we don't have those Friday PD days once per month that we have, or it would mean that we would go longer into June. Either one, I'm fine with, and it's a conversation that our calendar committee is having and will make for sure.
Thank you.
to say kudos for getting this
Yeah, it's great.
really early.
Yes.
And I will say the
Very helpful.
20, the one for the following year, we actually just finished today. 27, 28. So we finished that today, and that'll be coming to the board shortly with the report to approve as a draft. So we want to get that out. So folks who are traveling or want to make plans, they have that information available to them.
Wonderful.
That's great. Call the roll.
Herzog?
Aye.
Hess?
Aye.
Smelty?
Aye.
Wright?
Aye.
Wyman?
Aye.
DeWitt?
Aye.
Ford?
Aye.
Resolution carries.
Okay. And then we have number 4, approval of temporary borrowing.
So move.
Second. DeWitt.
Mr. Nehans?
Yes, I just want to make sure everyone's clear in understanding the additional borrowing. This is truly a cash flow issue. It has nothing to do with the budget, has nothing to do with anything that the state just set within our budget calculation or enrollment numbers. None of that is part of short-term borrowing. Short-term borrowing is really the cash we have within our bank accounts and where our expenses are to pay our bills and make payroll. So when we did the calculation back in August, we had a low point of 9.8 million. I decided to go with a $10 million line of credit, which is the amount that you approved. As we've gotten to this point in time, we are going to be beyond that with our expenses, so we'd like to take an additional short-term $5 million borrowing out to get us through the month of January, and then that gets paid back and we stay with the original line of credit. Are there questions?
I'll say, just for some historical perspective, so the short-term borrowing is a consistent process that we've done historically. It's common among municipalities. Part of the issue, and we've advocated for this in Madison and haven't gotten the change yet, is just related to when the revenue payments are provided to the district. So the tax collections are completed, and as that comes out on a quarterly payments, and they're uneven payments. They're not necessarily even payments, and where that money needs to go or needs to go. And so that, when you're talking about paying monthly bills and getting quarterly payments, there's some inconsistencies and some gaps. And so short-term borrowing is a strategy to be able to fill those gaps. And so just for some larger context for that, again, just related to cash flow.
Mrs. DeWitt?
You all thought you were going to get away with not hearing from me tonight. I totally understand the reason and point of doing this. I think I will support it. I will vote yes on this. But I think that there is a opportunity for a learning process here. And what I mean by that is when we're not communicating properly to the community as to what we're looking to do, misconceptions come up. And I have seen the last couple of days people up in arms, which rightfully so, being upset because back in August we approved $10 million and now we're coming in asking for $5 million more. So I think that we need to do better at communicating because truthfully, this looks terrible to the taxpayer and the people within our community because I don't know who said it, but somebody talked about the verbiage that we use, right? The everyday average taxpayer does not understand any of this. They see a headline from the Northwestern or Channel 2 News or whomever, the Herald, and, oh, Oshkosh School District needs to borrow more money. Like, when I'm reading that as a community member and a taxpayer, I have no idea. So I will support this because I don't want to see any of our staff or any of our teachers or anything like that not be paid. But I think in the future, we need to take this as an opportunity to do better at communicating and being 100% transparent in what we're doing.
Could you, I'm just curious, could you explain what you think we could have done better to communicate this?
Well, I'm looking at this from not a school board member, right?
Sure.
The first time that the community, or I'm sure,
I don't know for a fact, but I'm sure the first time that many people saw this was when an Oshkosh Northwestern article came out. Asking about, and again, headline reading, Oshkosh Area School District asking to borrow $5 million more. Again, the everyday, you and I and all of us here may understand what's going on, but the everyday average voter or the everyday average citizen does not understand that. So if we go out and we explain, hey, this is, like Dr. Davis had said, short-term borrowing, that's something that's not new to us. Mm-hmm. But when you hear school district needs to borrow $5 million more, of course their mind is going to go, what the heck? So I think just being better at explaining and communicating what is actually happening.
Thank you.
Can I ask, I'm looking at the key communications and the need for this. Part B, the higher than anticipated health claims in the summer. What, can you explain that a little more for the community, please?
Yeah, our health claims being self-insured, our health claims get pulled out of our checking account on a weekly basis. It depends on how many bills get sent to the insurance company over that week from providers that go through the process for what that dollar amount is. So this is one of those items where you make an educated guess on what those weekly claims are going to amount to. In this case, the number we were tagging as the calculated number for that ended up being lower than what the claims actually came in. Typically, a weekly claim for us, a normal weekly claim run for us is in the $500,000 to $750,000 range. We had several weeks throughout the June, July, August time period where we had a claim pull of $1.4 million or $1.8 million that were considerably out of where a normal typical variance would be on that, which obviously puts a stress and strain on what when we didn't give a lot of buffer from the original line of credit. And again, I'll take ownership of that. I should have come out for just a $15 million line of credit from the get-go. It's a line of credit. You don't pay if you don't draw it. We're so used to being in a TRAN world where you borrow and you borrow once and that's it. So you want to be as tight to your limit as you can. That was part of my headspace of going, we had a $9.8 million total deficit. I wanted to go as close to that as we could. Lesson learned. Line of credit, I will be doing more of a buffer as that moves forward, but didn't happen this time.
I mean that I think that's part of my struggle is because if I recall, we did the $10 million line of credit last time. That was like at the end of August, right? That was when we did the budget.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah.
So I'm struggling with we need this because of claims that happened during the summer. I would think we had that at that time. I get it. You're estimating. What is I hear all this federal grant monies, the government's closed. Does that have anything to do with the item 2, the delayed grant revenue, Department of Public Instruction? How does that? I'm trying to kind of just understand these items.
Sure.
For why this stuff comes up.
Yeah. So this was going to be a really good year for us, set up for getting into the reimbursements into all of our grants through the state. We'd done a lot of work, and we've talked about it in all last year within board meetings of we got last year onto a regular quarterly claim for our larger grants, the special education flow through and the Title I grants that are our larger dollar amounts. We got them into a position where we were making regular quarterly claims. So we're excited this year coming into fall that we'd be able to make a quarterly claim beginning part of October. We were anticipating about $1.5 million coming in at the beginning of October off of that. That process also relies on DPI to approve all those budgets for us. Some of that budgeting process, as you go through it, like for all of your title funds, you're also dependent on all of your private schools to submit all of their enrollments and all of their demographic information. So we work with them to get that, but sometimes there's not the same timing. We don't control the timing off of all of that. When we submitted the budgets, it just took DPI a significant amount of time to actually work through those and approve it so we could actually file a claim. So we were anticipating we'd get $1.5 million roughly in early October, and that actually didn't hit our bank accounts until this last week.
And I think you had said that this doesn't really affect the budget, that this is just short-term borrowing, but I'm struggling with that a little bit, that if we are borrowing $5 million, I get that's a line, but if we were borrowing $5 million at 7.5% for 3 months, that would cost us $94,000 in interest payments. So I guess, and I was kind of struggling too, because I looked back at that August, the $10 million version, and that didn't have anything in here either. So how do we pay for the interest then on these things? I appreciate that maybe you're going to try to minimize that, but the 10 million, I'm assuming we're doing this because we're getting up close to the 10 million. Did you say like we're at 9.8 right now or something?
Well, that was our anticipated low point. We are, in your budget variance report is really a calculate. So we're $19 million short right now. Is where we are expenses to revenues through the month of October. So we had $15 million of fund balance. So at this point, we're $4 million into our $10 million line of credit. We're in the first week of November.
But
so yes, as far as to answer your question on the budget, this is going to have a line item effect on overall performance. There is a line item in the budget for interest expenses for short-term borrowing that's in there. My reference to the budget was more in line with, this had nothing to do with the state, this revenue limit formula, how many kids we have enrolled in this district or not. That's not part of this calculation. This is truly a cash calculation, nothing else.
I think that's kind of my question, is ultimately, if we're borrowing more, we're going to have to pay interest on it. That does cost us money.
Correct.
And I go, well, okay, we had a budget. Where does that money come from? Or are we having to give up something to be able to do this? Borrowing money is an expense. And I'm trying to figure that out, is how much, and I get that it's variable and you're going to try to minimize it, but do we have a pot of money that is allocated towards this? And is this, originally you were assuming 10 million and now we're going up to 15 million for, admittedly you're saying only 3 months, but that could be a fair chunk of change, and I'm wondering, does that change anything? Do we have to give up anything to make this happen?
Yeah, I do not have that number, what we budgeted for interest expense off the top of my head. So I'll have to get that back to you.
And I mean, that's part of my, I think kind of what Ms. DeWitt said is, I think there's a transparency thing about that. I wish we would do something more than that. But that said, I understand why we need this, and I kind of concur with Ms. DeWitt. I'm not willing to be frustrated with that and not pay our employees. We need it. So, and I'm thinking that's what kind of we're saying, right? That we need cash to do all of the operating stuff. So we're kind of in a position where we kind of have to do this, so.
Dr. Davis and then Mr. Wright.
Yeah, so, and just to follow the line of thought, the idea of transparency from where we were from a process standpoint of using our short-term borrowing method to what we're doing now for short-term borrowing using the line of credit. So how much was that in a savings just related to interest savings from our previous methodology from previous years to what we're doing this year? Just to get at the fact of what this is costing, or what we're, again, it's not costing us something this year, but as we're looking at what the difference would have been compared to previous years.
Yeah, I believe that was in the $225,000 to $250,000 savings from traditional Tran to the line of credit.
Okay, so
it was in that ballpark.
All right, so that's a pretty significant savings that we would have had.
Correct.
In our previous model. So, and we're working with Nicolay Bank, I think, on that line of credit, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, and they've been working with us for trying to minimize how many days we need to have this out for, and
sure,
and what that is.
So as we're moving forward, just having better forecasting on that, we just need to go out once.
Correct. With
better forecasting, lesson learned this year, but still being able to have that over $200,000 savings like in that process, because that's something that we can solve as we're moving forward.
Yeah, obviously the savings won't be quite that high this year because we're going to take out a little bit more for an additional period, but we're still going to have savings being in the line of credit than what we would have had we been in a Tran.
Yeah. Okay.
Mr. Wright?
Can I just make a couple comments, mainly so that the headline tomorrow isn't OASD's $19 million in the hole. How this works, right, is most school districts across the whole state have to short-term borrow or get lines of credit, because how many times a year does DPI reimburse us and give us the money we need to operate with? Do you have that answer?
We get 4 payments. So to date, we've gotten $12 million in general aid. We'll get another payment of roughly $22 million in December, and then we'll get another one in March, and our last one in June.
So we cover while we're waiting for the state to reimburse us, and then we pay that money back, right? That's how it works. So really, I mean, a lot of people have talked across the state, legislatures, whatever, for a long, long time, that our state funding mechanisms probably aren't exact, and if they were, and they were different, then school districts wouldn't have to short-term borrow all the time. So that's just my layman's quick analysis.
Yeah, so
if I missed something, let me know.
So to put numbers to what you were saying, we got a $12 million payment in September. That was really the only revenue we get of any consequence, and that's supposed to last from June until December. So 6 months of operations on a $165 million organization with $12 million of revenue. They don't add up. So that's why predominantly the majority of districts short-term borrow.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, thanks for that, Mr. Wright. Yeah, I was joking around with the TV crew here before that. I was hoping they were here for the academic discussion, because if they're just here to cover something that happens in municipal government every day, everywhere around the state of Wisconsin, it's going to be a really boring story. But they came, so hopefully they got something good. But just trying to summarize here, right? I mean, right, the issue here, as Mr. Wright said, is our expenditure commitments, which is primarily people and stuff, don't align with the revenue disbursements. So if you look at the report today we got from Drew, we're still expecting $144.5 million in remaining revenues coming this year. So we're going to be able to pay this back. And to Dr. Hess's point, obviously we have to pay it back, and that comes with a cost, and that comes out of our budget, and there's an opportunity cost there. And then I guess tying it back to my previous point earlier tonight, and it was something that was in the report that was provided to us, and it's in the packet for anyone who wants to read it. We need to get to a point where we're replenishing our fund balance and right-sizing our district, so we don't have a structural deficit, so we are better positioned to handle situations like this. We don't have to have that additional interest cost. And I know that that's part of the budgetary plan this year, which is a good thing. And I guess I'll end by saying that I got a few people that contacted me on this, and some of them were demanding that we have an independent audit. So I directed them towards our district's independent audit. And I encourage anyone out there to go ahead and read it. Source documents are always a really good thing, but those are all on our website, and you can learn a heck of a lot about where the money's coming from, where the money's going, by checking that out. That said, it's not always the most digestible, because it's done by an auditor. So that's another way where when I talked earlier about us speaking the same language, I hope we can work some better financial stuff into that dashboard we're developing. I'll shut up now.
Okay. Are we good? Call the roll, please.
Hess.
Aye.
Snobley.
Aye.
Wright.
Aye.
Wyman.
Aye.
DeWitt.
Aye.
Ford.
Aye.
Herzog.
Aye.
Resolution carries.
Thank you. Request for future items to be considered by committee.
I would like, sorry, I'm really tired. Policy and governance to possibly look at any policies related to municipal or circuit court proceedings in school settings.
Okay. Put that on your agenda.
I will. I'm like, I have to officially say it.
I'm glad you did. Thank you. Anyone else? All right. Any announcements?
I also have one of those.
I do one of these. I just want to say a quick thank you to Amanda, is it Patsa? I just called her Amanda, with the principal at Val, who took me on a nice tour of the school. And it's just really cool. You can see the culture changes there. It's a school I visit all the time, and it was a really positive experience. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
We're also going into the Lego League season and the robotics season across the district. I do want to give a shout out to the 4 Lego League teams. They're having a scrimmage this Friday night at Tipler. But the reason I want to give a shout out is because for a long time we've been struggling to get more than one team in this district, supported by the rec department and by our head coach for this. And this year I believe we have 5 local teams that will be participating in the scrimmage. So it's a really great way to get kids involved with STEM, and I hope we can continue to grow that program because it's great and really hard. So hopefully we can keep it going.
Perfect. Good. Anything else? Ladies, any announcements?
No?
Gave them earlier.
All right. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Right,
do
do it.
Okay, Snobley.
Aye.
Wright.
Aye.
Wyman.
Aye.
DeWitt.
Aye.
Ford.
Aye.
Herzog.
Aye.
Hess.
Aye.
Meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.
Yeah, I got calls on that just like you did.
My fault tonight.